Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to extend a very warm welcome to you all as we gather together for this conference tonight. I would like to take this opportunity to sincerely thank Dr. Mas'ab al-Jamal, the president of Sliman's International University, Dr. Salim Dakash, the president of Holy Spirit University, Dr. Muhammad Rabbah, the deans of our faculty, the Faculty of Arts, Social Sciences, and the Humanities at the Lebanese University, Dr. Muhammad Al-Hajj, our director of the third branch of the Faculty of Arts and Humanities at the Lebanese University, Father and Dr. Jamil Skandar, the technical coordinator for this conference, in addition to the numerous people from professors, doctors, fathers, moderators, students, and attendees who have contributed in both the preparations and participation of this event, and for allowing me the honor to facilitate the fourth scientific section in such an imperative conference. Let me tell you something that despite the challenges that we're facing due to COVID-19, it is inspiring to see such unity and continuity as we embark on the subject matter that will prevail over the next hour or so. Years ago, we have realized that COVID-19 pandemic had a major impact on school years for many students around the world, where education has changed dramatically with a distinctive rise of e-learning, where teaching was undertaken remotely and on digital platforms. As a result, experts were and are still looking ahead to how ongoing outbreaks had affected and how it will affect education in both the near and distant future. Research suggests that online learning has shown to increase retention of information and took less time, meaning the changes coronavirus has caused might be here to stay. In this moment and tonight, we gather to reflect on the impact COVID-19 has had on education, specifically focusing on continuing education in light of the repercussions of the pandemic. Subsequently, to extend on this subject, I'm delighted to introduce for you tonight 4 speakers who will present their prospects to you. I will start with Dr. Fatima Bazzi. Are you with us, Dr. Fatima?
Yes, I'm here. I'm glad to be with you all.
Okay, so Dr. Bazzi is our first speaker. She's a lecturer at the Lebanese University and has been an instructor of the Teaching Certificate Program at AUB's Continuing Education Center. Dr. Bazzi has completed a PhD in English Language and Literature from the Doctoral School of Literature, Humanities, and Social Sciences, and is currently the coordinator of the English Language Department of Counseling and Guidance Office at the Lebanese Ministry of Education and Higher Education. Additionally, Dr. Bazzi is both the acting head of the English Language Committee of the Lebanese Secondary Official Exams and the head of the English Language Committee in the Bank of Questions of the Lebanese Secondary Official Exams. Dr. Bazzi has been also a trainer of teachers, graduating from the Faculty of Pedagogy and Education in the Lebanese University, and a committee member in the English Language Department of the Lebanese Secondary Official Exams. Besides, she's the author, co-author, and consultant of the English language books for the secondary cycle, Testing Strategies, New Streams in English, and Themes for Today. Dr. Fatima Bazzi will be speaking tonight on shifting to online classrooms during the COVID-19 pandemic, with a particular focus on the challenges of EFL teaching and learning. Her study aimed to investigate the main challenges that resulted in the field of education during the pandemic of coronavirus or COVID-19, when shifting to purely online teaching as the main source of education that has been difficult for both teachers and learners of all subjects, including English as a first foreign language, EFL. Therefore, the main aim of this study was to explore the extent to which online EFL teaching in Lebanese secondary public schools was challenging and what impact this virtual environment had on the quality of teaching and learning. Therefore, to have a clearer perspective, I will invite Dr. Bazzi to present her presentation. Good evening, Dr. Bazzi.
Good evening. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Dr. Nancy, for the introduction. In fact, I'm glad to be part of this conference, and it's a pleasure to share with you all the results of my research. I would like to thank Dr. Mus'hab for this opportunity, Dr. Rabah, as well as Dr. Iskander. I'd also like to thank all the participants and the attendees, as you mentioned at the beginning. And in order to save time, I'm going to start. Hopefully, I will share the screen. Is it clear?
We cannot see the screen yet, Dr. Bazzi.
Okay, let's ask the official, please. Can someone help us, please? Share the screen. Let me try again.
سليمان مشان البرزنتيشن عرض.
Yes, please.
Can you see it now?
1 minute, 1 minute.
Thank you so much. Okay. Okay, so in fact, as Dr. Nancy mentioned, the title of my research is Shifting to Online Classrooms During COVID-19 Pandemic, specifically the challenges of teaching and learning English as a first foreign language. Starting with the background of my study, when coronavirus disease COVID-19 appeared and became pandemic all over the world, it caused many problems, mainly in the field of education. Almost all countries have faced critical challenges, and they have tried their best to find solutions. Decisions have been made and education strategies have been followed in order to shift to online learning environments. However, it has not been that easy. It has been very difficult because it requires online advanced materials, strategies, and certain teaching platforms. If we take the Lebanese context into consideration, teaching has been either in a blended form or purely online for 2 academic years during the pandemic of COVID-19. Although joint efforts and serious efforts have been made by the Ministry of Education and Higher Education in Lebanon and the Center for Educational Research and Development in order to help reduce the impact of the challenges during the online teaching. However, teachers and learners have found it difficult to teach and to learn the subjects of their curriculum in online classrooms or using certain online platforms. As such, this sudden shift, in fact, to online teaching and learning has been very demanding and very problematic in Lebanon. The statement of the problem here, we can see that the teachers of English as a first foreign language, specifically in the public sector, because I focused in my study and in my research on the public sector, specifically secondary public schools. They have different levels of digital literacy in general, and in specific, they have or they lack the online teaching experience required in order to teach the subjects of our curriculum. So they have encountered several serious challenges when we are talking specifically about the quality of the content, the material, I mean, to be taught, the strategies to be followed, the methods of assessments, among other factors such as internet limitation. So the purpose and the significance of the study, it explores the changes that COVID-19 has generated in EFL classrooms in Lebanese secondary public schools. How, by examining the online EFL teaching experience as well as the difficulties they encountered. It also examines whether the teachers of the Lebanese secondary public schools were able to use this technology or online teaching in an effective way. Specifically, the stages of teaching were under investigation, because it's important, according to me, to investigate and to dig deep in order to find where we find or where the challenges are found in which stage the most. If we move to the research questions, the first one has to do with the perceptions or with the attitude teachers have towards online teaching. The second one about the impact of online teaching on the strategies, the teaching strategies teachers usually use. And the last one about its impact on the quality of EFL learning, because when we talk about teaching strategies, it's very important at the same time to measure the learning outcomes and to ask teachers about their own evaluation of these learning outcomes. Moving to the literature review, I will be very selective in order to save time, because I want to give more time to the discussion of the results. For sure, according to the literature, there we can find views with and views against. Here, if I want to mention some of the benefits of online teaching, as mentioned by certain experts in the field of education, they consider it more interactive. Others consider it easier for slow learners. According to another point of view, it is supportive to higher levels of learners' cognitive skills. If we take into consideration the factors or the qualitative ways that we have to consider while taking the subject or the topic of online teaching into consideration, in a study conducted by Gonzalez 2010, in fact, he focused on 4 qualitative ways to consider online teaching. The first one is about to what extent it provides information to learners. Then about the communication it provides, in addition to the online discussions and to the way it supports the knowledge of the students. And that's why in this study, I wanted to examine to what extent online teaching resulted in providing the learners with the information needed and in engaging them effectively in discussions, in activities, and through the stages that usually teachers follow in their classrooms. If we move to the critical views, we can see that according to Harrison, for example, and Thomas 2009, they believe that it is artificial and it needs time to be mature. Crawford and others 2020, they considered this shift as very challenging and very demanding, and it does not happen easily and rapidly due to the challenges that appear. To be more specific, critical views towards online language teaching. According to Patel 2020, it has been always a challenge according to teachers and learners. And the online language teaching and the use of technology, according to Habaz and Najjar 2015, hinders the autonomous learning. As for others, such as Webster and Hackley 1997, many learners do not succeed in an online learning. In addition, certain experts and in the field of education took into consideration the essential factors needed when we have to check the success or to measure the success. We have to talk about the integration of technology to the curriculum in a well-organized and designed, well-effective way, so that to help learners achieve more and improve their language skills. Others took into consideration how we develop the different learning environments while we teach online. In addition, Weno, for example, 2005, focused on the effective resources and the materials, and that's why part of the discussion today will be about the teaching materials used by our teachers in the Lebanese public sector. However, if we take into consideration the literature review, all the cases or most of the cases explored in the previous literature are not the same as resorting to online learning as the only source. And here we are talking about something that is not optional. We are talking about something that is obligatory. And there are certain additional factors when teaching in such conditions. For example, feeling of being excluded from ordinary life is an additional problem, in addition to the stressful situations with the students' families, with the health as a result of the pandemic, in addition to certain economic problems. As such, it's very essential to study the challenges teachers encountered in such a critical situation. I will move to the methodology used. In fact, it is a mixed method approach using quantitative and qualitative data. It included, as for the part of the participants, it included 61 EFL teachers of Cycle 4 in secondary public schools from different Lebanese regions. As for the instruments used, in fact, they include a questionnaire and a semi-structured interview with the 3 open-ended questions followed by certain questions when needed. As for the procedure, in fact, teachers were provided with a questionnaire when they returned to blended learning. And this was done on purpose because I wanted them to reflect on their teaching experience, which was purely online for about 4.5 months from January till May 2021. So let's start with the data collection and analysis. The first part of the questionnaire investigated and explored the background of the teachers in terms of their gender, education, and teaching experience. As for the gender, 83.6% of the participant females were females and 16.4% were males. According to the education of the teachers, their educational backgrounds, all teachers had university degrees ranging between BA and PhD. And concerning the teaching experience, if we see here, we can see the results of the teaching experience. We have 59% had an experience that ranged between 11 to 20 years. 21.3% had an experience of more than 20 years. So we can say that around 80% of the teachers had an experience above or more than 11 years. However, if we take their online teaching experience into consideration, it ranged between 1 to full academic years. And it's important to mention here that sometimes it was in the form of blended learning. So I made sure that all the participants had similar educational background and a limited online teaching experience. And I made sure at the same time that there was no external factor that might affect the results of my study. Moving to the second part of the questionnaire, also I explored the online training they received, the online teaching platforms they used, and the teaching materials they used. According to the results, 70% of the teachers said that they received a training of 2 to 3 hours before shifting to the online teaching. And when asked about the objectives of the training, the majority of the trained teachers said that, clarified that, explained that the aim of the objective of the training was to be introduced to the platform and its feature. And there was nothing about the teaching strategies to be used online or the assessment methods to be used also online. As for the teaching materials used, 72.9% of the participants said that they used the lessons of the national book with some sort of adaptation. As such, I concluded and deduced that the majority of teachers used materials that were not originally designed for online teaching, and they were not provided with the appropriate training needed for online teaching. In addition, concerning the platforms used, the teachers were given the option to choose more than one platform as long as they used more than one platform. And here we have the highest percentage, 96.7% in fact of the answers, they used the platform here, Teams. And the purpose of this question was to make sure that the responses of the majority of teachers were based on the use of the same online platform. As such, I can move now to the third part of the questionnaire about teachers' attitude and perception towards online EFL teaching. And here I'm going to show the percentage of the highest percentage of the answers as related to each question. 56.7 either strongly disagreed or disagreed that they felt comfortable when teaching online. 53.3% disagreed that they felt confident, and 60% agreed that they felt confused. In addition, there was a question about the nature of the environment. And they were asked to what extent it was teacher-centered. And the majority of the teachers, 55.7%, considered the environment very much teacher-centered. So, in fact, the majority, we can say that it's clear evident that teachers, the majority of the teachers, neither felt comfortable nor confident towards teaching EFL online. And they considered this virtual or online environment, as mentioned by Dr. or clarified by Dr. Al-Jamal, this online environment is teacher-centered. Then we have another question about the challenges they encountered and to what extent it was challenging. As the result here, we can see that 64.7% of the teachers considered the teaching through online platforms or in general online classrooms very challenging. In order to be more specific, another question was about the stages usually followed by teachers while explaining or delivering their lessons. So it investigated the stage during which teachers encountered the challenges the most. The question provided 4 stages. The first stage, which is the input when teachers present or explain new ideas and concepts. The second stage of the discussion, when teachers discuss the new ideas or concepts with learners. Then we have the stage of activities, when learners work on exercises or on activities related to the new ideas or concepts. And finally, we have the stage of assessment, when teachers usually assess the learning outcomes and provide their students or their learners with feedback. And the results, the highest 2 percentages of the responses were given to assessment, 32.8%, and to input, 31.2%. And here we can relate these two, in fact, high percentages to the second part of the questionnaire, mainly about the teaching materials because they are used in the input stage, and also about the online assessment methods, in fact, because teachers said that they didn't receive any training about it, so they found it very challenging to assess the learning outcomes. The last question of the questionnaire was about a teacher's ability to vary teaching materials, their ability to vary the teaching strategies, and the methods to vary the methods of assessment. As shown here, 56% of the teachers chose the percentage that is between 25 and 50 to represent to what extent it is possible to vary the teaching materials. 53.3 chose the percentage of from 0 to 25 to express or to represent to what extent it is or it is possible to vary the teaching strategies, and 50% chose from 0 to 25 to talk about the ability to vary the assessment methods. It was very important according to me, to check also the way they use the online assessment tools. So when they were asked about the use of the online assessment tools, 60% said that they did not use them at all. 21.7 said they use them for monitoring the progress of learners' acquisition of language skills, and 18.3 said that they use them for monitoring the progress of learners' understanding. As for the results of the interview, also here in order to cross-validate, yes, please.
Can I interrupt you, please? We need just to pay attention to the time, okay, to the allotted time given.
Okay, I thought that we have 20 minutes. I'm so sorry for being.
Yes, no, don't raise.
Okay, so
mainly,
okay.
Yes, 15 to 20 minutes,
yes.
but just to leave room for the
okay.
questions.
Okay, so when asked about the effectiveness, here it's important to mention that 5 out of 61 teachers were chosen randomly to be interviewed. The 80% said that it was not effective. Asking them about the reasons, all of them mentioned 3 common reasons: high percentage of learners' absence, inappropriate materials for online teaching, lack of online teaching experience and the training. Other reasons mentioned, for example, by 3 of them, considerable effort and time spent to engage learners. Half of them said parents' participation in solving exercises and the quizzes, and 1 teacher said learners' negative attitude towards online learning. The second question about their sense of satisfaction toward the results. Here we are going to check whether they were satisfied with the learning outcomes. In fact, 80% said that they were not satisfied, and they mentioned many reasons, such as the inability of students to practice and to gain the language in an accurate way. According to them, it was not possible to help learners enhance their language skills. The last question asked the teachers to make a contrast between face-to-face teaching and online teaching, also about the 4 stages here, in order also to cross-validate the results of the questionnaire. 60% of the teachers said that in the input, during the stage of the input, online teaching slightly enhances the learner's understanding, while face-to-face teaching somewhat enhances their understanding. 80% said that during the discussion, online teaching engages about 10%, while face-to-face teaching engages 50% of the learners. As for the activities, 60% said that it engages about 30% of the learners, while face-to-face, it's better. It engages 50 to 60% of the learners. And finally, according to the assessment, 80% said that it's difficult and less accurate during online teaching, while it's possible and more accurate during face-to-face teaching. So taking all the results into consideration, we can say that in the Lebanese secondary public schools, according to the first question, EFL teachers revealed a negative attitude towards online teaching and considered it very challenging and ineffective. According to the second question, online teaching had a considerable negative impact on the teaching strategies of the subject. And the last question, we can say that online teaching did not enhance the quality of EFL learning. بالعكس, on the contrary, the learning outcomes did not show any improvement in online classrooms. Dr. Nancy, can I continue with the conclusion and the recommendations, or is it enough?
I think it is enough, so that to allow the time for other participants.
For sure. Yes.
Okay,
yes,
if you can wrap it up like in a few seconds, and we will start with the second speaker.
So during the pandemic of COVID-19, EFL teachers in Lebanese secondary public schools were not satisfied with the results of online teaching. They perceived online teaching of EFL as inefficient for engaging learners in the learning process. They felt unable to use online teaching platforms and resources effectively to increase learners' knowledge and language skills. As for the recommendations, policymakers and stakeholders should work seriously in order to address the needs of online teaching. Curriculum designers have to work hard in order to design materials suitable for online teaching, and they have to provide teachers with supplementary materials. In addition, the ministry as well as CERS, they have to provide teachers with specialized training to help them use the platforms in an effective way, and teachers themselves have to rethink the teaching strategies they have held for many years and to adopt new approaches that help turn the online teaching fruitful. Finally, thank you all for your time, and thank you, Dr. Nancy, for being patient with me.
Thank you for you, Dr. Bazzi. Your contribution was so clear and concise, and it reflected the subject under study distinctly. Especially that we as instructors had many challenges as you have mentioned in your presentation. Thank you so much.
You are most welcome. Thank you.
Okay, now I will invite Ms. Suad Awaida, she's our second speaker. She's a PhD student at the Lebanese University and holds both a master's degree in computer engineering from the University of Balamand and a master's degree in linguistics from the Lebanese University. Suad is a coordinator for the English language at the Lebanese University and teaches English, programming, and telecommunication programs. Suad will be reflecting on neuroplasticity in the virtual English language classroom. Suad will put forward the question, is the human brain able to adapt to media multitasking? Good evening, Ms. Suad.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening,
How
ladies
are
and
you?
gentlemen. I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for introducing me, Dr. Nancy. I would
You're
like to thank
welcome,
all the organizers. I would like
Ms.
to thank all the
Let me
organizers
just
for
please
the
mention the focus of your study, okay? Ms. Awaita's study examined how most of the English language learners in the current generation that are technologically motivated and screen-oriented are becoming multitaskers in their virtual English language classrooms. Besides, the study aimed to explore the teacher's opinions regarding the learner's working memory performance when they switch back and forth between several user-friendly online tools and platforms. Thus, there was also a need to investigate the extent to which the learner's mental health and retention of information are affected when they engage in multiple attention-demanding tasks designed to master their English language skills. Okay, so Dr. Suad, the platform is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you again. I just need to stop the camera because the connection is unstable over here. Is it okay?
Yes, sure.
Okay. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can, Ms. Awaida.
All right. So let me start with the background of the study then. In light of the global spread of the coronavirus and as the switch to distance learning became a necessity for all of us, Lebanese universities, like most of the universities worldwide, implemented a set of diverse e-learning tools to address the learning crisis. So educators and instructional designers seeked various online teaching strategies, including web-based digital tools and applications in order to enhance the learner's performance, especially in the language classrooms. However, one challenge that stems from online learning is the quality of education provided during the pandemic. And this current outbreak of COVID-19 has in fact revealed the unpreparedness of many educational institutions for remote learning. Besides, some language teachers who are not actually ready for an entirely online experience still struggle to thrive in the remote teaching environment. They remain unable to engage students through virtual communication. And since they lack the confidence in utilizing educational technologies of any sort, they become incapable of providing remote learning opportunities for their learners. And even if they do, they tend to use a variety of tools and applications simultaneously, thinking that they are enhancing the teaching learning process. Hence, students become media multitaskers, unable to devote their full attention to one task at a time. For this reason, there is a need to explore the English language teachers' opinions regarding the learner's performance when several tasks are undertaken at the same time, and to investigate to what extent the learner's mental health and retention of information are affected in a multitasking learning environment. But what is multitasking? Lynn defined it as conducting two or more tasks simultaneously or switching quickly between 2 or more tasks. The term was first used in the 60s to describe computer performance. The human brain, though, is not a computer, and the human attention is a very limited resource. So the question is, can we as people, like a computer, indeed multitask, or at least switch from one task to the other so quickly that it's almost as if both were done simultaneously? Experts agree that this is only possible to a limited extent. The human brain actually works in a serial fashion. In fact, in our brain, the frontal lobes located directly behind the forehead are mainly involved in task planning, reasoning, and cognition. However, they activate in different ways when an individual is asked to perform a single task, 2 simultaneous tasks, or even more. The French neurologists Coquelin and Charon used functional magnetic resonance imaging to analyze the brain activity of 32 student volunteers in multitasking mode. And the results of the study revealed that what is really called multitasking is often the illusion of doing several things at the same time, when in reality, our brains quickly jump from one task to another. So the multitasking brain is therefore largely a myth, except in the case of tasks made automatic by learning, which can then be performed simultaneously. Research in cognitive science has shown that our attention is limited and our cognitive capacity for completing any task is finite. Consequently, if multiple tasks are attempted simultaneously, then our finite cognitive capacity is divided between all tasks. In a research study conducted by Lejgor and his colleagues to test whether people adapt to multitasking interference and whether they can minimize it, 4 task combinations were studied. Participants were given at first a fixed primary task, a multi-column subtraction, which consisted of 10 columns that had to be solved digit by digit in standard right to left order. And there were 2 types of subtraction problems. In the easy condition, all upper term digits were larger than the corresponding lower term digits. Participants therefore did not need to remember any carries in order to solve the problem. But in the hard condition, 6 of the 10 columns required the participant to perform a carry operation. The subtraction task requires visual resources, attention and processing, manual ones, motor control of the hands, as well as declarative memory in order to retrieve the facts about subtracting numbers. But the difference between the 2 subtraction conditions is that in the hard condition, the state of the carry must be maintained between the columns, and this carry is usually stored in working memory. So that's the difference between both kinds of subtraction. This working memory actually contains only a single chunk of information, but when multiple chunks have to be remembered, only one chunk will be in the focus and the rest will be in declarative memory. Hence, requiring working memory-like access to multiple chunks will require that chunks be swapped between working memory and declarative memory. And as this swapping takes time and there is a risk that a chunk can no longer be retrieved from declarative memory because it has been forgotten, requiring working memory-like access to multiple chunks causes interference. So at the start of every trial, participants were shown the subtraction condition, easy or hard, and were given a choice between 2 secondary tasks, tone counting or tracking. In the tracking task, participants had to keep a moving dot within a circle using a trackball peripheral device. From a cognitive standpoint, the tracking task used both visual and manual resources, but working memory is unlikely to be involved in here. In the tone counting task, tones were presented to participants through a pair of headphones, but after completing the last digit of the subtraction task, participants were prompted to type in the number of the tones they heard. So the tone counting task required oral resources, auditory, attention, and processing, and working memory resources, but not the visual resource. Now, since both tracking and subtraction require the visual and manual resources, threaded cognition predicts that easy subtraction is more compatible with tone counting than with tracking. However, during a hard subtraction problem, there is significant overlap with each of the secondary tasks. The overlap with tracking is in visual and manual resource, as you can see in front of you in the table, while the overlap with tone counting is in the working memory resource. But overlap in the working memory resource is typically thought to be more disruptive than the overlap in the visual and manual resources. Hence, if people adapt their choices to maximize utility during multitasking, they will choose, of course, task combinations that minimize interference. Now, moving to the methodology adopted in this study, this research is actually a survey study that was undertaken at a private university in North Lebanon at the end of the academic year 2020-2021. The population of interest consisted of 20 English language instructors, in addition to 150 undergraduate university students enrolled in remedial English language courses in the academic year 2020-2021. At the end of spring semester, instructors and students participated in 2 different questionnaires specifically designed for this study. As for the findings, we start first with the questions that were addressed to the instructors, of course. Of all the benefits, now this is the first question, which feature about online teaching do you like the most? And of all the benefits that online teaching offers, 41% of the English language instructors consider the availability of a wide range of web-based tools and platforms as the most important one. As indicated in the 2 charts, 42% of the instructors believe that juggling several tasks helps in enhancing information gain. And 58% claim that the online learning tools and resources selected beyond the textbook aim to create meaningful and efficient online learning experiences in the English language classroom. Now, when asked about the form of media multitasking that is more usual in their classrooms, it turned out that the sequential multitasking, which involves interrupting and resuming tasks, turned out to be more common in the English language virtual classrooms than concurrent multitasking, even though both forms have the same impact on the brain. Another question asked about how well the students usually perform the tasks in a multitasking setting. And according to this figure, 46% of the instructors had a neutral position, while 23% reported that their students performed the tasks with a great difficulty. These results contradict with the findings in the previous chart about information gain, which indicates that 42% of the instructors think that multitasking increases information gain. And finally, the last question asked about the online learning tools that the instructors almost use in every English language session. And through the use of several kinds of interactive material and the implementation of creative teaching strategies, the English language instructors are trying their best to make classroom learning more active in order to meet students' individual needs, of course, and maintain their attention and motivation. However, this graph reveals the overuse of such tools in the virtual English language sessions. Now, let's move to the students. The first question in the questionnaire, in terms of students' satisfaction and enjoyment, this graph shows that a fairly large percentage of students, 65%, enjoy remote learning, but they would like to change a few things about their virtual classroom structure. Moving to another question or another set of questions, as can be seen in the charts here, a high percentage of students, 89%, reported that it's very likely for them to feel stressed when they are asked to perform several tasks at the same time, or when they need to juggle from one activity to the other quickly. Besides, most of them, 76%, indicated that they feel unable to concentrate when they engage in media multitasking behaviors, or that their attention span depends on the type of activities involved. Regarding their task performance, 70% of the students believe that the complexity of the tasks has an impact on the performance level and on the quality of work submitted. And finally, the major drawback that the students have encountered is having to manage on their computer screens several windows open simultaneously and having to switch from one to the other very quickly. One for the course video, another for chatting, one with the documents available on Google Classroom, and finally a window for Google Meet. Finally, it can be concluded that multitasking creates a great demand for cognitive resources such as attention and working memory. So it's worth mentioning that instructors need to reflect on their own teaching and use technology wisely to create a supportive learning environment for the students and maximize learning potential. They actually need to exploit the best methodology that can boost students' performance while preventing the risk of cognitive overload. Hence, digital tools and resources should be used effectively to redefine classroom learning practices and create new learning opportunities with new tasks which were previously inconceivable. Thank you for watching, and these are the references that I have used in my presentation and in my paper.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Awaida, for your presentation. It was really interesting and compelling, and thank you for the time and effort put in this presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you again.
And for being committed to the time.
I tried my best, actually. I had so much to say, but I tried to summarize as much as I can. Thank you so much.
Studies really take time to be discussed, but since we are restricted in time, we are going to be very concise. Okay.
You're totally right. Thank you so much.
All right. Now, I would like to invite both Dr. Samar Hamiye and Dr. Lubna Naami, who will discuss a double challenge in transforming education under health and economic constraints. Good evening, Dr. Samar Hamiye and Dr. Lubna Naami. Are you with us?
Yeah, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, and we can.
Thank you. Okay.
All right. What about Dr. Lubna? Okay.
I was the one who asked. I was the one who
Lubna.
asked whether you can hear me or not. I'm Dr. Lubna.
Dr. Lubna, I thought it was Dr. Samar.
Okay, I am Dr. I was the one who asked.
Okay, you're welcome, both of you. Okay, let me just first introduce you. Dr. Samar Hamiye is an assistant professor at the Lebanese University and Beirut Arab University and has completed a PhD in linguistics from Beirut Arab University. She is a former lecturer at the American University of Beirut and Lebanese American University. Dr. Hamiye is a language editor and a communication skills trainer and has given different courses in the areas of linguistics, such as sociolinguistics, semantics, language testing, morphology, and syntax. Correspondingly, she is a member in the Foundation for Critical Thinking.
Okay. I think, do we have the permission to share the screen?
Yes, 1 minute. Let me just also introduce Dr. Lubna, then you will start your presentation. Okay?
Okay. Okay.
Furthermore, Dr. Lubna Naami has completed a PhD in applied linguistics from Beirut Arab University. She is currently the head of the English department at the Center for Educational Research and Development and is a member of the Lebanese Curriculum Development Committee. Dr. Naami is a lecturer at the Lebanese University, Beirut Arab University, and at the Continuing Education Center. She is also a former teacher, coordinator, and teacher trainer. Furthermore, she's a former ambassador and trainer on the behalf of the British Council and has received 3 awards from the British Council. Additionally, Dr. Naami is a producer, coordinator, and quality controller of digital resources. So good evening to both of you.
Good evening,
and before
Dr.
also starting,
Thank you for this introduction.
Focus of your study. As for Dr. Hamiye and Dr. Naami's study, it aimed to show the perceptions of instructors toward online education and their online teaching practices under the political and economic constraints and the pursuit of online education under those tough conditions. For this reason, both public and private universities in Lebanon were surveyed to investigate their perceptions towards online learning and how effective online education is in comparison to traditional education. Therefore, to have a wider viewpoint, I will invite Dr. Samar Hamiye and Dr. Naami to present their presentation. So the platform is yours.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. First, I would like to express my gratitude to the organizers of this conference for giving us, Dr. Lubna and I, the chance to present this study titled as a double challenge in transforming education under health and economic constraints. Well, the disconcertment, this study includes the abstract, the introduction, the statement of the problem, the literature review, methodology, the results, discussion, conclusion, limitations, and finally the references. The disconcertment of the educational situation after the COVID-19 pandemic and the forced use of online teaching have opened many queries regarding the uniformity of the online educational experience worldwide. Many developing countries have to face not only the pandemic, but also the political and economic constraints and pursue the education process under tough conditions. The educational system has slightly evolved throughout generations in Lebanon. However, educationalists have always felt a strong urge to change the traditional methods of teaching. The COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated this process. Well, instructors and learners had to adapt to new methods in teaching and learning within a short period of time. And to cope with new situation. Students and instructors nowadays are used to holding smart devices for various reasons, such as browsing the internet and scrolling through the social media sites. But never did they imagine that such devices would enable them to enter the classroom without actually being there. Well, 2020 spring semester was the turning point in education in Lebanon, where instructors and learners discovered new skills and uncovered the flaws of online learning. Well, the purpose of this study is to unveil the main problems faced by the instructors while teaching online, is to examine the instructors' perceptions and practices of online teaching, to report and reflect on the implementation of online teaching and learning in Lebanon during the COVID-19 pandemic. Its purpose is also to make recommendations for instructors, learners, and curriculum designers. The problems are the unpredictable challenges that necessitated the use of new terms, methods, and techniques, the struggles with the unconventional situations, the time needed for preparing online sessions, predicting students' reactions in understanding the new concepts, and finally, the unfamiliarity of Lebanese university instructors and students with the use of educational sites and platforms such as Moodle and Blackboard. In addition to these problems, there were major events that took place in Lebanon, like the 17th of October revolution, the economic crisis, the pandemic, unemployment, Beirut port blast, which increased the stress and demotivated both the learners and the instructors. The questions that are going to be answered in this study are: what are the instructors' perceptions of online learning experiences? What are the students' perceptions of online learning experiences? How is online learning more or less effective than traditional learning? The literature examines online teaching and learning process during the COVID-19 pandemic. And I will start with a study conducted in India that shows that there are various kinds of the teaching learning modes utilized during the COVID-19 pandemic, and that instructors as well as students were using WhatsApp despite the availability of various digital platforms. In this study, the results also show that motivation can be boosted if the instructors realize the advantages of online teaching. Moreover, successful online teaching requires the mastery of certain skills. In this study, we can see that online learning is boring as the students are not accustomed to learning from behind the screens. We can also see that the challenges that face the instructors are both technical and ideological. Another study done in Poland showed that e-learning is considered to be an effective tool for teaching students. However, it's less effective than the traditional learning in terms of enhancing skills and social competencies. The advantages of online learning were that the continuous access to online material, the opportunity to learn at the student's own pace, and the chance to acquire information in a comfortable atmosphere. On the other hand, the disadvantages are the lack of interactions, the technical problems, and the lack of self-discipline. Another study conducted in the Philippines showed that the challenges were the depersonalization of teaching, the increase in academic dishonesty, indifference and resistance to technology, less student interactions as compared to those that take place in physical learning. The impediments of online learning are the poor internet connection, the intermediate competence of the computer skills of the participants, and the lack of training in online education. This study also shows that the older the instructor and the higher the level of education is, the more favorable he or she is with online education. Now, this study is conducted in Lebanon, and the participants are the Lebanese university students. This study shows that Lebanese students suffer from economic, political, and health problems and are still expected to excel in the novel online learning method despite the poor infrastructure in the country. The study also shows that the more the students are satisfied, the less they are susceptible to depression, anxiety, and stress. We can also see in this study that females are more likely to suffer from depression, anxiety, and stress than males. Now, in Thailand, the results show that there are many pros and cons of online teaching, and that most instructors showed a worrisome attitude since the shift was unplanned. It shows also that it's necessary to think of future directions that might increase the effectiveness of online learning. Now, the participants of this study are teachers and students coming from Europe, the United States, Australia, and the United Kingdom. The study results reveal that online interactions are less effective than face-to-face interactions. In a conventional classroom, the lessons are more structured and there is more bonding and better opportunities for peer assessment and group dynamics. The advantages of online learning in this study shows that where flexibility in terms of pace and time, accessibility discussions, research, comfortable and stress-free environment, less peer pressure, and quicker rapport building. The disadvantages are loneliness and isolation, lack of interaction and inhibited communication, lack of connection with other learners, the absence of emotions, the need to be self-motivated, the inability to manage computer systems, the difficulty to implement pair or group tasks, the need to interpret what the student means, the amount of time needed to set up, and finally, plagiarism. While this study is an empirical study, a questionnaire has been designed on Google Forms, and after the approval of the university dean, this questionnaire has been shared via WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger. Well, the participants of this study are 100 university instructors, 78 of them were females and 22 were males. These university instructors come from, 36 of them come from the private sector, 38 from the public sector, and 26% work in both public and private sectors. Well, the questionnaire is a self-designed questionnaire. It was checked for its reliability statistically and pedagogically. It was sent to 3 raters, a statistician and 2 educational experts who examined it and sent their feedback. It was also piloted by 10 instructors who were not among the actual participants, who filled it to verify its functionality in terms of clarity, consistency, and inclusiveness. Accordingly, necessary modifications were made. Well, this questionnaire was divided into 6 sections: the background information, the instructor's perceptions, the student's perceptions, the technological structure, facilities, and finally, the evaluation. The items included in the survey were then categorized under 8 dimensions. These dimensions are the university constructive role, the suitability of online examination, preference for traditional teaching, demands of online teaching, technology struggles for instructors, technology struggles for students, a student's commitment, and outcome of online teaching. All these dimensions were later on analyzed through SPSS in order to find the correlation among these variables. Now I would give the platform to my colleague, Dr. Lubna, to continue discussing the results. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Samar. I will take it from here. So as far as the results are concerned, this figure shows the reliability analysis of the scales. So as you can see, all the scales were reliable with a Cronbach's alpha, which is equal or greater than 0.6. This figure illustrates a description of the sample. So as you can notice, 60% or the majority of the participants were instructors who teach at the Faculty of Letters and the Human Sciences. Most of them teach at the public sector, that is at the Lebanese university, and the majority of them were females. Regarding their age ranged between 27 and 65 years old, that is an average of around 43 years old. As for the years of experience, so the years of experience ranged between 2 years and 42 years, that gives an average of around 15 years of experience. As far as the means are concerned, the means reflect the perceptions of instructors towards online teaching. Therefore, as you can notice, many instructors believe that the university did not play a constructive role in online teaching and online education. At the same time, most of the instructors believe that online examinations were not suitable to assess the students. Many of them reported that they preferred traditional teaching methods and that they believe that online teaching and learning is highly demanding. At the same time, many of them reported that they faced many problems and struggles with technology. Yet, we cannot deny the fact that their students suffered much more. At the same time, the results revealed that for instructors, many students were not committed, so there was an average level of commitment from the students' side. Yet, despite all these problems and challenges, many instructors rated the outcome of online teaching as satisfactory. Regarding the difference between males and females, the difference in these numbers might not sound significant, yet it indicates that one way or another, according to males, online teaching was more satisfactory than according to females, and this could be due to the fact that assumingly males are better users of technology than females. Regarding the type of university, again, these similarities in numbers indicate that there was no direct relationship between the type of the university and the outcome of online teaching and learning. Regarding the correlation of significance, as is very clear, all the variables were significant and they proved to be significant when they were correlated, except for the factors that are related to age and to the years of experience. In more specific terms, so here on the left side, we can see all the dependent variables with only one independent variable, which is the outcome of online teaching. So as it is very clear, Those that we can see over here in the yellow color are the ones that were insignificant, including the years of experience, the type of university, whether it is public or private, the age, and the gender. So all these factors were not significant. All the other factors, on the other hand, proved to be significant at 3 different levels. So at level 1, we have the technology struggle for students and the demands of online teaching and learning. At level 2, we have the suitability of online examination, whereas at level 3, we have the factors that were the most significant. These factors are the university constructive role, the preference for traditional teaching, the technological struggles that were faced by instructors, and the commitment of their students. These statistics helped us to answer the research questions. So regarding the first research question, which has something to do with the perceptions of teachers towards online teaching, the results indicated that males reported better satisfaction. This indicates that males are better users of technology. The second result that was revealed is that females were the most dominant as they responded to the questionnaire, which again signifies that females are dominant in the field of education. Now, unexpectedly, the factors which are related to the age and the years of experience did not play a major role or did not have a great impact on the quality of online teaching. Regarding the type of the university, there was no significant relation between the type of the university and the outcome of online learning. So if you have a look at this table, we would notice that instructors who teach at the Lebanese university and instructors who teach at the private universities were in the same boat. So both of them were unprepared. Both of them did not receive any tools and devices, and both of them did not receive any kind of financial support. However, instructors at private universities were at an advantage because they had better facilities and they had a wider range of delivery channels, not to mention that they actually received greater technical support. At the same time, all of them received sufficient training on how to utilize different platforms. Instructors at the Lebanese university, on the other hand, had to depend on themselves because they received no or minimal training because it was optional. This is why they had to depend on themselves in order to discover the features of Microsoft Teams or to consult a colleague who has advanced technological skills. Yet, despite all these obstacles, instructors at the Lebanese university managed to adopt satisfactory models of online teaching. Regarding the struggles with technology, we cannot deny the fact that many students and instructors equally faced struggles with technology, simply because many of them had poor technological skills, not to mention issues that include the poor internet connection and the frequent power cuts. All these factors disrupted the process of teaching and learning online and caused a lot of frustration and disappointment. Again, yet despite all these challenges, the results were considered as satisfactory. Regarding the factors that were positively correlated with the outcomes, we can mention the positive role of the university, the suitability of online examination, and student commitment. This indicates that instructors who reported that the university played a positive role, those who believed that online exams are suitable, and those who believed that their students were committed, had actually favorable outcomes of online teaching and learning. On the other hand, instructors who received little university support had a negative attitude towards online teaching. Therefore, they were less motivated, they had more struggles, this increased their stress, the achievement was lower, and definitely the outcome was poorer. At the same time, the factors that were negatively correlated were the preference for traditional teaching, the demands of online teaching, and the technological struggles both for teachers and students. This indicates that instructors who reported that they prefer traditional teaching methods, those who felt that online teaching is highly demanding, and those who faced a lot of struggles with technology along with their students had an unfavorable outcome of online teaching and learning. Regarding the second question, which is related to the students' perceptions, many instructors reported that their students were not engaged and that they were not satisfied because of the feeling of social isolation that they were experiencing. On the other hand, Many instructors reported that their students were more comfortable working at their own pace, simply because they had the chance to watch the recorded sessions whenever they wanted. All in all, students were not very motivated for two main reasons. The first reason is that they were not aware of the advantages of online education. The second reason is that their instructors preferred traditional teaching methods. Regarding the third research question, which is related to the effectiveness of online teaching, many instructors reported that they prefer traditional teaching methods, that they are not aware of the features of the platforms that they were using, that their students were not very committed, that online teaching is very demanding in terms of preparation, and that they faced many struggles with technology. Again, despite all these challenges, according to them, the results were satisfactory. However, throughout the entire process, no teacher has mentioned that online teaching was more or less effective than traditional teaching. This actually leads to the conclusion that both methods complement each other and none of them is a substitute of the other. In conclusion, with the emergence of the COVID-19 pandemic, all educators across the globe found themselves obliged to make this shift from face-to-face teaching to online teaching. At the same time, the results revealed that many instructors were not at ease simply because they didn't receive sufficient support, whether this support is technical, administrative, or financial. This is why they had to depend on themselves or on their colleagues in order to manage their classes. Regarding the students, they did not help much for three main reasons, which are the lack of motivation, the absence of control, and the technological struggles. Teachers, on the other hand, reported clearly that online teaching is very demanding, that they prefer conventional teaching methods and pen and paper examinations. In having a look at all the variables, we can notice that among all the variables, only 4 had a major impact on the outcomes of online teaching. These 4 variables are the constructive role of the university, the suitability of online exams, the preference for conventional teaching, and the commitment of students. Other factors, on the other hand, such as gender, years of experience, age, the type of the university, the demands of online teaching, and the technological struggles for both instructors and the students affected the views of instructors, but did not have a direct impact on the outcomes of online teaching. Based on these results, we have 2 recommendations. The first recommendation is to examine the perceptions of instructors who have job satisfaction. The second recommendation is to investigate the effectiveness of instructors' well-being on their performance while they are teaching online, and consequently on the achievement of their students while they are receiving these online classes. Regarding the limitations, there are 2 main limitations. The first one is the small size of the sample. So if we take a larger sample, definitely the results would have been different. The second limitation is that many respondents were from the Faculty of Letters and the Human Sciences. Again, if another faculty was dominant, most probably the results would have been different because the types of students and the degree of interaction differ according to the faculty and according to the major. Here is the list of references. Thank you, that was all.
Thank you so much, both Dr. Samar Hamiye and Dr. Lubna Naami, for your rich and profitable discussion. Especially, it reflects really the challenges that we as instructors are facing the challenges that instructors are facing under those harsh and tough political and economic restraints. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Nancy. Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome. Now, please, I will leave room for any questions. So if any questions are going to be raised, please feel free and try to interfere, please.
شكرا دكتورة نانسي، مشكورة كثير. Thank you very much دكتورة.
Thank you so much, Dr. Masab Al-Jamal. Let me conclude. I would like to conclude by sincerely thanking again all the organizers, directors, coordinators, managers, doctors, fathers, and attendees. And on top of all, you, Professor Musab Al-Jamal, for this international conference, for their time, efforts, and beneficial academic contributions to the matter surrounding education during the COVID-19 pandemic under the title Continuing Education in Light of the Repercussions of the Pandemic. Your studies, strategies, and hope for life beyond this epidemic are well received and very much appreciated. I want to close by saying that the struggle we're in today due to COVID-19 is developing the strength we need for tomorrow. I wish you all more success and achievements, and it was an honor meeting you all. Thank you again, Dr. Fatima Bazzi, Dr. Suad Awaida, Dr. Samar Hamiye, and Dr. Lubna Nami for illuminating us with your prolific discussions and studies. Have a nice evening.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank
Nancy.
you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
Well
for
done,
you.
dear
Thank
colleagues.
you for the contribution.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Well
much.
done too.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you again. Thank you for you.
شكرا دكتور مصعب. شكرا.
شكرا لكم جميعا. طبعا اعتقد كان يوما ناجحا
حافلا،
لكنه متعب جدا لا شك، سواء الجلسات في اللغة العربية أو في الفرنسي أو في الإنجليزي. طبعا يعني استعدنا بكرة طبعا كمان في يوم سيكون فيه شيء من التعب، لكن إن شاء الله سيكلل بالنجاح. اليوم كتقييمي لأداء العمل وتقييم كل الحاضرين أن هذا المؤتمر كان ناجحا بكل المعايير. فأي مناقشة أو موضوع قبل أن نختم؟
شكرا دكتور مصعب الجمل.
دكتور هاني تقدر موجود؟ أبونا موجود دكتور هاني؟